You want to get into University of Virginia, I want to help you do it. My name is Craig Meister. Welcome to another video in this series of how to get in. Today we talk about University of Virginia. If you would like to learn more about me, you can go to my website, collegemeister.com. And on that site, you can also learn how you can work with me one-on-one throughout the entire college application process. University of Virginia is in Charlottesville, and it's a public school that is always in high demand. It's one of the top-ranked undergraduate public institutions in the United States of America. And let's dig right into the tips that I would give you, that I am giving you, in order to get into this most impressive university. Tip number one, below this video is a link to my classic article, How to Get Into the Ivy League Ethically. I want you to read that article from start to finish very carefully. It's over at the website admissions.blog. I wrote it a few years ago, and it applies to obviously all the Ivies, but UVA is a school that I would consider very much a public Ivy in terms of selectivity especially, and there are many acceptance rates that you can read about at University of Virginia because depending on your demographic, there are different acceptance rates. What do I mean by this? Well, if you're an in-state student versus an out-of-state student, that's one bifurcation, but there's also the differentiation between being an in-state student early decision versus an out-of-state student early decision, or an in-state student early action versus an out-of-state student early action, versus a regular decision student in-state versus a regular decision student out-of-state. So with all this in mind, there are at least 6 acceptance rates that you have to be sort of navigating in your head to determine whether or not you're going to get into University of Virginia. What I will say is they're all quite low, but do understand that if you're from out of state, you have a statistically lower chance of getting into Virginia than you do if you're from in-state, and the overall undergraduate population at UVA is heavily tilted toward Virginia residents, those who've lived in Virginia before they start their undergraduate career. With all that in mind, that's why you want to read that article, because for out-of-state students, regardless of when you apply, but particularly for regular decision, getting into UVA is very, very difficult. It's highly selective. They're all selective admissions plans, regardless of if you're in-state or out-of-state. But again, it's going to be much harder to get into UVA if you're from out-of-state. So if you're looking at just a generic overall acceptance rate at UVA, don't be fooled by that. That overall average acceptance rate applies to no one. It's overestimating your chances of getting in if you are from out of state. It's underestimating your chances of getting in if you are from in-state. And also, again, when you apply is far more important than the overall acceptance rate, because there are quite different acceptance rates for ED, EA, and regular. The most advantageous way to apply to University of Virginia, which brings up tip number 2, is early decision. This is binding. And this means that if you apply by November 1st and get all of your documents into UVA, meaning you're supporting letters of recommendation, if you are submitting, supplementary materials like that, obviously your transcripts need to be in by the 8th. By the 8th of November, you are going to be reviewed carefully, and you will get an admissions decision by the 15th of December. So that's only basically a month and a half or so that you have to wait. And you could hear by December 15th that you've been accepted to UVA. That is binding. If you get into UVA ED, you go to UVA. Obviously, there's some loopholes you can get out of it. But ultimately, you are signing a contract, your high school counselor is signing a contract, and your parent or guardian is signing a contract, all saying that if admitted, early decision, you will go. Whereas early action is non-binding. You apply by November 1st still, but you don't hear until January 15th. And in that particular scenario, you are not ever required to attend University of Virginia or even expected to. You have until May 1st in order to determine whether or not you want to go. And I should actually correct myself. The notification date for early action is February 15th. It is not January 15th. So you're going to have to wait 2 more months than early decision candidates will to learn of your fate at the University of Virginia. And then you could also apply to University of Virginia January 5th, regular deadline, and you would hear by April 1st. That is the most selective plan in the sense that there's most demand for that. Most students are applying for regular, and the acceptance rate drops accordingly. So if you want to be strategic, again, and you're willing to forego comparing offers of financial aid or Merit8 or whatever you want to compare into the spring, early decision would be the way to go if your goal in keeping your eye on the prize is getting in to University of Virginia. My next tip would be you very much want to have an SAT or ACT score that is at least 1400 or 31. That's the bare minimum that I would use to share, meaning submit the SAT or ACT score, self-reported on the actual Common Application. That is the bare minimum. Currently, when this video is being filmed, UVA is test optional. It will be test optional through the 2025 admission cycle. However, in the future, they may get rid of testing altogether. They may require it again, but at least for now, when you are watching this video in the current year, 2023 or maybe 2024, it's extremely important that you understand that only the students who have the most impressive scores are even submitting their scores. So the average SAT and ACT scores have gone up at UVA as a result of this test optional policy. Thus, I would be very leery of submitting any SAT score in the 1300s or lower, or any ACT score of 30 or lower to UVA. Even, frankly, a 31 or a 1400 on the dot is going to be below the middle 50%, if you will, the 50th percentile of accepted students. So you are on thin ice there if you even submit those scores. The higher you can get, the better, obviously, in terms of giving me the comfort and hopefully giving you the comfort of giving you the confidence that you can and should actually submit those scores. Otherwise, your SAT and or ACT scores very well could be a net negative on your application. So in a test optional environment where only the strongest are submitting their scores, I would highly recommend that you have high scores too if you are actually seriously considering submitting them for consideration in your application for admission to UVA. My next tip is it's extremely important not to sell yourself short. What do I mean by this? University of Virginia, like lots of selective schools, are willing to look at information you provide if you provide it, but they don't know information about you if you don't provide it, if that makes sense. So what am I trying to say here? Don't use the Common Apps activities page as the end-all be-all to where you can share details about your extracurricular exploits. Smart applicants are going to be sharing more information about themselves after having created a full-fledged, unabridged extracurricular resume about themselves on either a Google or Word document at home or on their home computer. How can you learn to do this? You should absolutely take my How to Build an Extraordinary Extracurricular Resume short course, which is linked below this video. You can find it over at Gumroad. It's a very quick course, and it will teach you how to build out an extracurricular resume in the format that's appropriate, but also giving you the space necessary to elaborate in a way that you cannot do on the Common Apps activities page. This is highly important because the activities page is skeletal, and for an applicant to UVA, you want to share more than that because most of the most impressive applicants to UVA, the ones that really have the best shot of getting in, are going to have more to say about their at least one or two of their extracurricular commitments than that would fit in the activities page of the Common Application. Once it comes time to actually complete the Common Application, you should, if you are a serious applicant in it to win it at UVA, should be sharing supplementary details about those extracurricular activities in the additional information section of the Common App's writing page. This is below the Common App essay. There is a space where you can elaborate on anything more that you want to share, and most applicants, even very well-meaning, intelligent applicants, get to that question and they're like, oh, I don't have anything else to share, and they click no, I have nothing else to share, and they move on. That is a waste of 650 additional words that you could use to your benefit if you have more to share about anything, really. But I find that 9 times out of 10, it's the extracurricular details that require greater explanation, more detail, so that the college understands the depth and breadth of what you've achieved within that particular extracurricular pursuit, or 2 or 3 or 10. Because depending on the student, maybe you have 15 extracurricular activities, only 10 of them fit into the activities page of the Common Application. That would warrant you at least sharing details about the additional extracurricular activities in the additional information section of the Common Apps writing page. Or maybe you're a student who has only 9 or 10 extracurricular activities, but at least 3 or 4 of them require a great deal more explanation as to all your accomplishments and achievements within those distinct 3, 4, 5 extracurricular activities. That would also call for greater number of words to describe than you have in the activities page of the Common App, which really limits you in terms of characters. So taking that How to Build an Extraordinary Extracurricular Resume short course is a highly recommended thing that I provide, because not only obviously will it help us continue producing these videos because we make a small fee from it, but the main focus, of course, is the fact that you learn how to put together an extracurricular resume that actually hyper focuses in on the things that matter to the college in question. All colleges at the selective level are going to want more details if you have them to give yourself greater specificity and clarity to the readers of your application, again, of what you've been accomplishing in the extracurricular realm since the summer after 8th grade. My next tip comes to the actual supplement of University of Virginia, and this is where you will find questions about, your intentions. Why University of Virginia, at least traditionally. But this year, in the 2023-2024 admissions cycle, University of Virginia has amended their supplemental essay questions, and they've done this in the last couple of years quite frequently now. University of Virginia has opted to ask one 300-word response question, meaning you have 300 words with which to respond to this particular prompt on their supplement. What about your background, perspective, or experience will serve as a source of strength for you or those around you at UVA? This is a very interesting prompt, and I believe it is a great embodiment of why you should not have an essay prompt written by committee, but it is what we are working with this year at University of Virginia. Let me read that again. What about your background, perspective, or experience will serve as a source of strength for you or those around you at UVA? Considering the most recent Supreme Court decision related to affirmative action, I'm extremely surprised that University of Virginia included the word background in this prompt when they could have just asked the question, what about your perspective or experience will serve as a source of strength for you or those around you at UVA? It seems entirely unnecessary to use the word background, especially after the Supreme Court has made illegal the use of raw race, as a consideration for admission to colleges and universities in the United States. Yet, UVA has included that word, and I worry that many students will see that word and then simply just write about one of their backgrounds, whether they're Black or they're Hispanic or they're Jewish or they're gender queer or they're an Eskimo princess, whatever it might be. I'm concerned by that because ultimately the response that you write, and you have 300 words to write it in response to that question, must focus on your explicit actions, your explicit growth into that particular, and what you've learned from that experience or perspective, or if you choose background, that background. It can't just be one-dimensionally focused on I am X, the end, and sort of a book report on X, the background, or X, the perspective, or X, the experience, like this happened to me, or I have this view on this issue. It can't be one-dimensionally focused on any of those things. It needs to be multidimensional in the sense that your response has to then jump from, okay, this is the background I'm talking about, this is the perspective I'm talking about, this is the experience I'm talking about, and this is why I draw strength from it, or why others will draw strength from it during my time at UVA. So this is somewhat complex. You need to show sort of that this is a gift that's going to keep giving to either you or those you interact with at UVA. How I would structure this essay is I would have an introductory sentence or two with a thesis, clearly stating the background, perspective, or experience around which this short essay will revolve. Then the body will dive headfirst into showing how that particular background, perspective, or experience serves either currently and into the future, you predict, as a source of strength for you, or how you envision this background, perspective, or experience will empower or serve as a source of strength for those around you at UVA. So for 300 words, this is quite a heavy lift in my opinion, but again, the body is where you would show that happening. And then the conclusion, you want to say something new. You don't want to just restate the thesis. You want to say something new and innovative and thought-provoking at the end so that the application readers at UVA feel like they just want to learn more about you and they're excited and that you've wrapped it up well and again, originally, not just by restating whatever it is you said in the beginning, because that is cliche, that is prosaic, you don't want to do that. So one of the ways you theoretically could conclude this is if you haven't had enough space yet in the first, let's say 250 to 275 words, and the last 50 to 25 words, maybe in the conclusion is where you explicitly show yourself on the UVA campus if you haven't done so yet. But again, the body would be ideal time to do that, and really showing in specific detail. Don't just tell, but show how this particular background, perspective, or experience you've chosen to focus on in this short essay will in fact serve as a source of strength for either you and personally, or will be shared by you to others in the UVA community. Again, regardless of which one you pick, you must get multidimensional here. You cannot just lean on your background or lean on a perspective or viewpoint or lean on a description of one particular experience alone and that be the essay. You need to then dovetail it into how you draw strength from that experience, or others will draw strength from that experience because you'll share it with them, or that perspective or that background. And this is something that, again, I'm very surprised that UVA is asking this question with the word background in it, because it puts them into a very interesting thicket of the situation, because some may just focus on their background, and depending on how much they are able to transition from their background to how it is a source of strength for them, it could really mire them in legal issues, frankly, and I'm quite surprised by it. It's also just an extremely obtuse framing of a question, in my opinion, and very much disparate from how UVA has asked essay questions in past years that have been clear, have been crisp, have been fun, have been innovative. This very much feels like many cooks were in the kitchen when developing this particular prompt that is required of all students who are applying to UVA for first year admission. Again, you have 300 words with which to work and respond to this particular prompt. Then, if you are an applicant to the nursing school, the School of Nursing at UVA, you have the gift of having one more essay that you need to complete. This one is describe a healthcare-related experience or another significant interaction that deepened your interest in studying nursing. What's so ironic here is that that prompt is very direct. It asks for a specific experience and show how it deepened your interest in studying nursing. Very specific, very cut and dry. You have 250 words with which to work and respond to that particular prompt. I just don't understand why UVA did not ask that type of question for all applicants and have all applicants just do one question. They could have easily asked, describe an experience or another significant interaction that deepened your interest in studying what you've selected on the application. That could have applied to all applicants. Yet, we have this bifurcation again between all applicants having to complete that first question and then the School of Nursing students only having to complete the second question and only 250 words with which to work again. If you are applying to the School of Nursing, I would simply say, follow the directions. This is pretty cut and dry. Focus on one particular experience or interaction that you feel was trajectory setting for you, or maybe trajectory altering for you, and clarifying for you as to how it deepened your interest in studying nursing. And it doesn't necessarily have to be you in a research lab or you as an intern at a doctor's office. It could be you in a wholly different environment, but you have personally made the connection between that experience, that interaction, and sort of this light bulb moment that you realize you really want to do nursing. You really want to study nursing. So again, I would structure it in a relatively traditional way, as I often say: intro with the thesis, body to support the thesis, conclusion that goes a step beyond the thesis. But again, you only have 250 words, so maybe a sentence for the intro / thesis, several sentences, obviously, for maybe a paragraph for the body, and then one sentence or so for the conclusion is all you're really going to have space for this nursing specific question if you are applying to the School of Nursing at UVA. I've included both of those prompts below this video, and as a bonus, I've also included my past videos relating to how to knock the common application essay out of the park. I did not talk about that in depth today, but of course, University of Virginia, most applicants to University of Virginia are going to be having to put together a common application essay, and that is a marquee element of your application. So you definitely don't want to give short shrift to that particular essay just because I, Craig Meister, did not talk about it in depth in this particular video. The reason I did not is because that requires whole other videos to discuss in depth, and I'm including the links to those videos below this particular video so that you're also in the right frame of mind and strategically ready to approach the Common App essay the right way so that that also remains, the final draft of it remains for you a net positive on your overall application to get into UVA. So there we go. There is the summary. University of Virginia is a great school. It has great professors. It has great, well-intentioned individuals in its admissions office. And I hope that you get into University of Virginia, and I know for sure that you have at least a better chance of doing so now that you've listened to this video, you've watched this video, you've observed my face bouncing up and down for the last number of moments, and I thank you for getting through to the end. If you, again, want to learn more about me, my name is Craig Meister. You can go to my website, collegemeister.com, in order to do just that. Until next time, I encourage you to subscribe to this channel because I produce more of these videos whenever I do have the time to do so. And you can also go over to admissions.blog to learn more about the overall college admissions process, which I will also link below this video, which is a website that I publish with other guest contributors here and there when we have time. And again, until next time, stay safe, stay well, and I wish you the very best of luck with your application to the University of Virginia.